There comes a moment in your life where your soul grows louder than your silence, where your peace becomes more valuable than the chaos of waiting, wondering, and wishing. That moment is when you finally stop chasing. Let me tell you something real and raw. Chasing is not love. It's fear disguised as effort. It's your soul trying to earn what should flow freely. When you're constantly reaching, calling, checking, giving, and bending, what you're really doing is placing someone else's value above your own worth. And guess what happens the moment you stop? Something magnetic, something powerful, something that flips the entire script. Because your silence echoes louder than 1,000 words, your distance creates space for reflection. Your absence forces him to face what he took for granted. This isn't a game, this isn't manipulation, this is alignment, this is you standing in your truth, reclaiming your energy, and no longer outsourcing your joy. You weren't born to chase, you were born to attract, to embody, to radiate, and when you do, something inside him shifts. He starts asking questions. Where did she go? Why does her energy feel different? Why do I miss her now? The moment you stop chasing is the moment he starts thinking. He starts remembering your value, not because you screamed it at him, but because you walked in it quietly, you embodied it, and that's powerful. So if you're tired, if you're drained, if you're questioning your worth, good. That means your breakthrough is near. That means it's time to stop giving more of yourself to someone who hasn't earned the access to your heart. You set the standard. You teach people how to treat you, not by how loudly you demand it, but by how silently you rise. When you stop calling, texting, checking in, and constantly trying to keep the connection alive, something powerful begins to happen. You create space, real, energetic, emotional space. This space becomes a mirror for the other person. Suddenly, the silence speaks louder than any conversation ever could. It's in that silence that he begins to feel the shift. He notices the absence of your energy, your presence, your support, and your voice. The comfort of knowing you're always there begins to fade, and that fading becomes a wake-up call. What once felt secure and taken for granted now feels like a loss, and in that loss, awareness is born. People often don't understand value in the middle of chaos. When something is always accessible, always available, it loses its weight. But when it disappears, suddenly and without drama, it forces the other person to reflect. He starts asking questions he never asked when you were always around. Why hasn't she called? Why does it feel different without her energy? Did I misread her commitment? These are not just surface-level thoughts. They come from a place of realizing that someone important has withdrawn. And that realization doesn't happen when you're chasing. It only happens when you stop. This is not about playing games. This is not about pretending not to care. It's about stepping back to allow clarity to rise. When you're always initiating contact, always explaining, always reaching, you become the noise, and in the noise, nothing is truly heard. But when you remove yourself, when you go quiet, the silence starts echoing. That echo reaches places inside him that your words never could. It stirs emotions he didn't even know he was suppressing. He might not show it immediately, but make no mistake. He feels the shift, the balance of power changes. The emotional weight flips, and in that flip, he begins to think. He thinks about what you meant to him. He replays moments that used to seem ordinary but now feel significant. He starts missing the small things, the way you laughed, the way you listened, the way you were just there. And here's the beautiful part. You didn't have to beg for it. You didn't have to explain yourself into exhaustion. You didn't have to prove your worth. You simply withdrew your energy, and that withdrawal became your most powerful statement. This kind of silence isn't emptiness. It's presence. It's self-worth. It's choosing yourself so fully that your absence becomes a lesson. That's when he starts thinking. That's when the tables turn. Not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed space for him to recognize it. What he does with that realization is up to him, but the fact that he starts thinking, that happens the moment you stop chasing. When you shift your energy from pursuit to presence, everything changes, especially how he perceives you. Energy is not just some abstract concept. It's felt deeply, even when words aren't spoken. When you chase someone, your energy carries urgency, neediness, and desperation, whether you intend it or not. And people can feel that. It pushes them away, makes them feel pressured, or even suffocated. But when you step back and reconnect with yourself, your energy transforms. It becomes calm, grounded, magnetic. That shift doesn't go unnoticed. It resonates on a level deeper than logic. You see, we often think that in order to be seen, we have to do more, we have to call more, give more, show more. But the truth is, when your energy is aligned with your worth, it begins to speak for you. You don't have to say, "Look how valuable I am." Your presence, or even your absence, radiates that message on its own. He begins to sense a change he can't quite explain. Suddenly, your energy isn't seeking or proving, it's choosing. It's standing tall. It's saying, "I know what I bring, and I'm not afraid to walk away if it's not honored." This inner transformation creates a ripple effect. You're no longer operating from lack. You're embodying self-respect. That's what makes someone stop in their tracks and think. That's what makes him remember your presence and question his behavior. When your energy is secure and not chasing, it calls people back to themselves. It disrupts their patterns. They're used to you reacting, explaining, and showing up, even when they didn't deserve it. But now, you're still, you're focused. You're no longer responding to their crumbs. And that contrast is powerful. Think about this. You can't hear your favorite song when there's static in the background. Chasing creates static. But when you clear that noise, when you quiet the chaos and root yourself in peace, your true frequency comes through. That frequency doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't beg, it invites. And that's when your presence becomes more than familiar. It becomes unforgettable. Because people don't forget the feeling of a person who knew their worth without needing to shout it. So when your energy shifts, it sends an undeniable message. I don't need you to validate me, I validate myself. And ironically, that's when he starts craving your presence, not because you pushed, but because you pulled your energy back and let him feel the difference. That emotional gap you create doesn't just make him think, it makes him feel. It wakes something up in him that your words never could, and that awakening, it starts when you stop chasing and let your energy do the talking. Chasing often feels like love, but in reality, it's usually rooted in fear. Fear of losing someone, fear of being alone, fear that if you don't keep reaching out, they'll forget about you. But let's be honest, chasing never feels good, does it? It drains you, it leaves you anxious, overthinking, and questioning your worth. That's because the act of chasing doesn't come from a place of self-worth. It comes from a place of scarcity. You're trying to hold on to someone because deep down, you don't believe you're enough as you are. And that belief starts to show in everything you do. You begin to compromise, to overextend, to give more than you receive. Not out of love, but out of fear that if you stop, the connection will die. But here's the truth. Anything that only survives because you're chasing it was never real love to begin with. Real love is reciprocal. Real love flows both ways. It does not need to be forced, begged for, or fought to keep alive every single day. If your effort is the only thing keeping the bond intact, then what you're in isn't love, it's emotional survival. And here's the deeper issue. When you operate from scarcity, you unconsciously send the message that you don't believe you're worthy of being chosen. You might say you want respect and love, but your actions tell a different story. You're chasing because you believe that unless you prove your worth constantly, he won't see it. That belief is powerful. People don't respond to what you say, they respond to the energy behind it. So when you show up overinvested, overavailable, and overgiving, he senses that you're not operating from wholeness, and often that leads to him pulling away even more. But when you stop chasing, you send a new signal. You declare without saying a word that you are enough. You shift from lack to abundance. You stop believing that love is scarce, and instead, you understand that love flows to those who believe they deserve it. That change in mindset, from "I need him to validate me" to "I am already whole," is the turning point. It's when your self-worth becomes louder than your fear. And from that place you stop chasing, not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough about yourself to walk away from anything that doesn't value you. Chasing feels like love in the moment, but it's a trap. It keeps you in a cycle of proving, pleasing, and performing, and none of those things ever lead to fulfillment. But when you finally recognize that your worth isn't up for negotiation, everything changes. You no longer chase, because you no longer believe you have to. You realize that you deserve to be chosen without running after anyone. And when that belief becomes your foundation, you attract not just love, but respect, effort, and genuine connection. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood concepts in relationships. People often think it means giving up, shutting down emotionally, or playing games to make someone jealous. But real detachment isn't cold, it's powerful. It's the ability to step back, not because you don't care, but because you refuse to keep sacrificing your peace for someone who isn't meeting you halfway. Detachment is when you stop tying your happiness to someone else's actions. You stop allowing their inconsistency to dictate your emotional state, and in doing that, you reclaim something priceless, control over your own energy. When you're emotionally attached in a one-sided way, you live in reaction. You react to every message, every delay, every shift in tone. You start walking on eggshells, trying to do the right thing so they don't pull away. That's exhausting, and that's exactly what keeps you stuck in a cycle of seeking approval. But when you detach, the energy changes instantly. You shift from reaction to response. You start observing rather than absorbing. You stop overanalyzing his behavior and start listening to how it really makes you feel. That's where clarity begins. This isn't about giving an ultimatum or pretending you're above feeling hurt. It's about choosing yourself first. Detachment is a boundary. It's you saying, I love you, but I love myself more than the anxiety this is causing me. And when you step into that space, when you stop trying to control the outcome, you give the other person the gift of experiencing life without your constant effort. They finally get the opportunity to miss your consistency, your presence, your care. Not because you've punished them, but because you've stopped overextending for someone who hasn't matched your energy. And here's the powerful twist. When you detach, you become magnetic, because now you're not pulling, you're not pleading, you're standing. Your energy becomes calm, centered, and strong. That kind of energy is deeply attractive. It makes him wonder what changed. It makes him reflect on what he lost access to. And often, that space you create by letting go becomes the very space he needs to step up. That's the paradox. You stop giving so much, and suddenly he starts giving more. But whether he comes back or not isn't the real victory. The real win is that you broke free from a pattern that was draining your soul. You stopped needing someone else's affection to prove your worth. You stopped bending, hoping, waiting. You rose, and in that rising, in that detachment, you found something better than validation. You found freedom. And in that freedom, you begin to attract not just attention, but respect, clarity, and peace. When you're always available, always predictable, and always giving, there's no tension, no curiosity, and no space for desire to build. Human beings are wired to be intrigued by what they don't fully understand or have constant access to. That's not manipulation, it's psychology. Mystery awakens interest. It activates the part of the brain that craves discovery, pursuit, and meaning. And when you pull back, not in bitterness but in strength, you allow that natural curiosity to resurface. Suddenly, he's not sure what you're thinking, what you're doing, or how you feel, and that uncertainty is what pulls his focus back onto you. It's easy to take someone for granted when their presence is constant. When every message is answered instantly, every call is returned, and every question is met with openness, there's no room left to wonder. But when you step into your own world, when you start living for yourself instead of reacting to his actions, he notices that shift. He starts wondering why your attention isn't centered on him anymore. He begins to feel the absence of what he once assumed would always be there, and that feeling is powerful, because that's what sparks him to think, to question, to remember. Mystery doesn't mean being distant or emotionally unavailable. It means you no longer feel the need to prove yourself. You no longer explain your every move. You no longer overshare or overgive in an attempt to be seen. You become selective, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. And that selectiveness makes you stand out. It creates a presence that lingers long after the conversation ends. It makes your energy feel exclusive, rare. And in a world where everyone is trying so hard to be seen, your calm detachment becomes unforgettable. When a woman steps into this space, where she's no longer chasing, no longer reacting, no longer accessible at all hours, she creates a shift that is felt immediately, not just by him, but by everyone around her. Her confidence becomes the mystery, her peace becomes the pull, And suddenly, she's not the one waiting for messages, checking her phone, or hoping he notices her effort. She's living, thriving, expanding. And that's what makes him pause, that's what makes him reflect, because now she's not trying to be chosen, she's choosing herself. Mystery allows space for desire to grow again, and when you stop chasing, that space opens up. He starts replaying your words in his head, thinking about how your energy used to feel, wondering if you've truly moved on. That's not a tactic. It's a natural result of reclaiming your identity and no longer being so available. So, if you want to reignite attention, don't try harder. Pull back with grace, step into your power, let him feel your absence, let him miss the mystery he used to think he fully understood. Because in that space of not knowing, his mind will wander, and more often than not, it will wander straight back to you. Reclaiming your power is the moment everything shifts, not just in your relationships, but in how you show up in every part of your life. It's when you stop asking, "Why doesn't he see my worth?" and start declaring, "I see my worth, and that's enough." That moment is not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, internal, and deeply transformational. It's the day you wake up and decide that your peace matters more than his mixed signals. It's the moment you choose boundaries over begging, dignity over desperation, and alignment over attachment. And when that happens, the entire dynamic changes because you change. You stop waiting for him to step up, and you start rising on your own. You no longer chase clarity from someone else. You create it for yourself. You stop bending to keep someone who isn't meeting you halfway. And that shift in posture, that emotional shift in how you carry yourself, sends a message louder than any conversation ever could. It says, "I am not here to earn love. I am here to experience it fully, freely, and mutually." That message, even when unspoken, changes how he sees you. Because now you're not grasping, you're glowing. Reclaiming your power doesn't mean being cold or guarded. It means that you no longer give people the power to disturb your inner world. You stop being available for breadcrumbs. You stop explaining yourself to someone who never truly listened. You begin to make choices from a place of self-awareness instead of emotional survival. That's where your confidence is reborn, not the kind of surface confidence that depends on attention, but the deep-rooted kind that doesn't flinch when things fall apart. That's when you become magnetic, not because you're performing, but because you're real, grounded, and centered. When a woman reclaims her power, she becomes a mirror. People begin to see themselves more clearly around her. If he's been careless, he'll feel the contrast of her calm withdrawal. If he's taken her for granted, he'll now feel the weight of her absence. She no longer has to scream, plead, or chase. Her shift does all the talking. Her energy becomes refined, elevated, and that energy attracts only what aligns and repels everything that doesn't. She's no longer operating from need, she's operating from truth. That's the ultimate power, knowing that you never had to chase in the first place. You were always the prize, but sometimes you have to lose yourself to find that truth again. Reclaiming your power is not about getting him to return, it's about returning to yourself. And when you do that, the right people will rise to meet you, not because you chased them down, but because you showed up as your most authentic, powerful, and aligned self. That energy is irresistible. That's when he truly starts thinking, not about who you were when you were chasing, but about who you've become now that you've stopped. When you stop chasing, something profound happens, not just outside of you, but within you. You stop running towards someone who couldn't see your worth, and you start walking back toward yourself. You begin to realize that the love you were searching for in someone else was really the love you needed to give yourself all along. The silence you feared becomes the doorway to peace. The distance you were afraid of becomes the very thing that brings you clarity. And in that stillness, you begin to remember who you are without the constant need for validation. You don't just change the dynamic, you change your destiny. Everything you were doing from a place of desperation and fear begins to fall away. You no longer feel the need to explain, to fix, to beg for attention. Instead, you reclaim your time, your heart, your energy, and the powerful truth is, when you do that, the people who were used to your chase start to notice your absence. He begins to feel the shift, not because you told him, but because you embodied it. The version of you who stayed up wondering what he was thinking is now the version who's too busy building herself to care about games that change. That's when everything begins to turn. This journey isn't about punishing anyone. It's about honoring yourself. It's about realizing that you don't have to be loud to be heard, and you don't have to overgive to be loved. You can simply be confident, peaceful, and whole. When you stop chasing, you stop trying to control the outcome. You let go, and in letting go, you set yourself free. You become the kind of woman who is chosen not because she demanded attention, but because her energy speaks for itself. That energy is rare. That energy is unforgettable. And yes, sometimes your detachment will wake someone up. Sometimes it will bring him back with a new appreciation for what he once overlooked. But even if it doesn't, you haven't lost, you've gained something far greater. You've gained yourself, you've broken the cycle, you've stepped into your worth in a way that no longer depends on who stays or who goes. That kind of growth can't be undone. That kind of strength attracts what is truly meant for you, not what you had to chase down and convince to love you. So if you've ever felt like you had to work too hard to be loved, let this be your reminder. You were never supposed to chase. You were supposed to attract by being in alignment with your truth. You were supposed to let go so the right things could flow in. And the moment you stop running after someone is the moment you make space for the love, respect, and devotion you deserve. That's when he starts thinking, but more importantly, that's when you start rising. Thank you so much for joining me today and giving your precious time and energy to this message. If you've made it this far, I know one thing for sure. You're ready to stop chasing. You're ready to reclaim your power. You're ready to choose yourself without fear, without guilt, and without hesitation, and I honor you for that. Remember, this journey isn't about him, it's about you, about your growth, your strength, your healing. And if this message resonated with you, it's because there's a deeper part of you that's waking up. The part that knows you were never meant to beg for love, but to embody it. So wherever you are in your journey right now, I want you to walk away from this video with one unshakable truth. You are more than enough. You are worthy of love that comes to you without being chased. And you are powerful beyond measure when you remember who you are. If this message touched your heart, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep growing, healing, and rising together. Your presence here means everything to me, and I don't take it for granted. Until next time, stay grounded, stay glowing, and always choose you first. Thank you again, and goodbye.